we've indicated in our release, Tasmania Police are extremely disappointed with the biased story that was run on 60 Minutes last night. So if you've got some questions to ask about our response to that, I'm quite happy to answer those.
Well, how frustrating is it that these claims keep coming up?
Look, it's been 5 years, so I guess it's very frustrating because certainly the people involved in the investigation did a lot of hard work over lots of months. The matter's being obviously decided by the criminal court. Its appeal was rejected by the Supreme Court. The coroner's reviewed all the evidence that we submitted to the DPP, and the coroner was also very, very happy that it was a thorough investigation.
Are you still completely satisfied that Sue Neill-Fraser committed this crime?
I have no doubt, and I guess I have to say there's always evidence that's not admissible in a criminal trial that the investigators know about. So I have no doubt in my own mind.
What about the claims that keep coming up about luminol? That actually did come up during the trial, didn't it? That the defence did put forward that actually could be bleach instead of blood. That's kind of nothing new.
Well, let's be honest about this. One of the things we've said today is that some of the things that were said on the 60-minute program last night are not accurate. Certainly the forensic scientist from our forensics area told the court that the luminol test was only an indicator. He certainly told them that there was no indication of blood being found in the dinghy. And he said it was only an initial test, and forensic testing back at the laboratory did not find any obvious signs of blood.
The other thing that came up in that report and today is the Victorian Police Forensic Services Department looking at the DNA sample from Megan Bass. Are you, I guess, confident that that was, or that it's a possibility that that was a secondary transfer?
Look, I'm not going to get into any argument about different forensic experts arguing about who's right and who's wrong. All I would say is that we're confident that the information that was given to the court, which said it was possibly a transference, could be right, it could be wrong. But no one's saying one way or the other whether it was a direct application or a transference.
Is it unusual to have Victoria Police sort of looking at evidence that relates to a Tasmanian case?
No, not at all. I would think that the Sue Fraser defence team have gone off and asked the Victorians to do that. But sometimes we do get things reviewed, but certainly that wasn't something that was done at our behest.
Can campaigns like those being run by her supporters, can that be damaging to people like his children? Well,
of course. They're no different to anyone. They want some closure out of this as well. So there's no closure whilst this keeps popping up in the media. And I guess the unfairness that we see is that the sorts of stories that were run on 60 Minutes, nobody wants to refer to any of the evidence that implicates or certainly points very strongly to Sue Fraser. And if they really want to know, they ought to look at the appeal court decision and read what the judges at the appeal court said about the evidence.
Would one way to settle it once and for all, though, be to have a review of the trial?
Well, let's be honest, it's been reviewed. It's been reviewed by the appeal court, it's been reviewed by the coroner, and let me say as well that Barbaretta has made many applications through our Right to Information, through the Integrity Commission, through the Ombudsman's Office, asking us to follow up on some of the speculation about different people that might be involved. And we didn't have to do that, but we have done it. And quite frankly, there is no evidence to suggest anyone else is involved.
What about 60 Minutes claims about this Paul Rowe? Was he ever a suspect? Was he interviewed several years later, and did he pack up and leave town in a hurry?
Well, let's get to the point about this. Last night's story suggested he had many different names. He's got 3 names that I know of. They all pronounce as Rowe. W-R-O-E, R-O-E, or R-O-W-E. So if anyone thinks he's trying to hide his identity, and in fairness to Mr. Rowe, with due respect, he's a 50-odd-year-old man who's got a severe alcohol problem. I'm sure there's confusion about how he's told people what his name is over in the past. And no, he was never a suspect. He was someone we became aware of later. And yes, we did interview him. I think it was about 2 years after the trial. He volunteered his DNA. We checked that against any forensic exhibits from the vessel. We already had his fingerprints on the national database, so they had been cleared. He did not flee the state as was suggested last night. He actually openly told me when he was interviewed that he was intending to leave the state because he was down on his luck. He had sold off some old vessel that he had that he owed Port Authority fees on, and he was going to Victoria.
Are you worried that Susan Neill-Fraser might have her conviction quashed in court?
Look, I've got no say on what the judicial process does. I would be annoyed because I've got no doubt that she is guilty of this murder. I guess the thing that worries me is, even if there was any sort of review in suggesting there should be a retrial, because there's certainly, in my view, a lot of evidence to implicate Susan Neill-Fraser. The problem you always have in these cases that get revisited years and years later is some witnesses will have bad memories. They're more susceptible to having suggestions made to them about what they did or did not see. And I'll talk about all these things about the grey dinghy, supposedly grey dinghy that was seen, because part of the evidence at trial was that just after 2 o'clock on the day, on Australia Day 2009, one of our witnesses actually helped Susan Fraser put her dinghy in the water from the beach at Santa Bay. And I've just reviewed his statement again today, and he actually says in his statement the dinghy was white grey. And here's a man who's got hold of the dinghy, put it into the water. So I think, any suggestion that people say there's a grey dinghy, maybe there's some confusion. And when you're viewing a dinghy that's out on the water 800 metres away, I would trust the guy that was actually on the beach having a closer look at it.
You said that there was evidence that was inadmissible that convinces you. Is there anything you're able to share
No,
with us?
I'm certainly not going to tell you any of those sorts of things. There is a legal process. The legal process is if we can only use admissible evidence in a criminal trial, that's what we do. But obviously, investigators find out lots of things that we're not allowed to give evidence about.
Susan Neill-Fraser's daughter said last night that the detective bragged that this was going to make his career. Do you have a response to that?
I do, because I know the comment she's talking about, and it wasn't that comment at all. The comment was something along the lines of, this is one of those really difficult cases that don't come along very often, and we have to keep working our butts off. And that comment was made about 2 months into the investigation, when she was arrested 8 months after Mr. Chappell went missing. So I think it was just a natural comment made by someone who's working his butt off. And I've got to say that getting a conviction that's not justified certainly wouldn't help anyone's career, and getting a conviction anyway is not the way people get promoted within our organisation. No, I think I'd just like to say that people that want to form a view about this, maybe ought to find out what the real evidence is, and probably the best way to do that is to go and have a look at the criminal court appeal decision.